Hello again, everybody. It's your old pal Guardian Enzo coming to you live on tape from Kyoto, Japan, with the last season preview of 2022 for the first season of 2023. That's right, it's the winter 2023 preview, and it's a kind of a normal winter in anime in that it's pretty thin on the ground. Now, what's not normal about it is that there are 51 series, by my count, not counting Netflix, on the docket, which is a huge number for winter. That's like 30% or even a little bit more over last year. But of that group, it's a really small number that I'm actually able to preview because 21 of them are light novel adaptations, which is easily the highest percentage of any season I can ever remember. And of those, the majority, of course, are isekai light novel adaptations. So when you factor in the usual kind of what I call the Katakawa effect, adding in the other kinds of feed corn shows that you get in every anime season, the idol shows and the cell phone game adaptations and the cute girls doing cute things, mostly on that one, there's just not a lot left over. So I'm only previewing maybe 12 out of that group, and realistically, so you're talking less than 25%, and my usual number is almost always right on a third of the shows that on a schedule that I'm able to preview. Not even close to that this time. So is this a reflection of the fact that it is a pretty thin season in terms of what I would consider to be really interesting series? Um, it's not unusual to have a big season in anime and then a really down season. That tends to happen quite a bit these days. Fall of 22, this current season that we're in, is definitely a big season with some big blockbuster shows. Uh, it hasn't in hindsight, it hasn't turned out to be a great season, which I at least had some minimal hope that it might, but it's been good. It isn't unusual either for fall and spring to be the big anime seasons and winter and summer to be small. And though winter is not small in terms of number of shows, as I said, 51, it is small in terms of number of interesting shows. That said, not uncommonly, you swing back in the other direction, and spring already has a lot of really big titles on the docket. So spring could potentially be another big season. For me, particularly Bokuyaba, finally hitting our screens in spring. That's kind of a huge deal for me. But there's a lot of other good stuff coming up in spring as well. But spring is spring, and we're here to talk about winter. So let's talk about winter 2023 and the shows that I'm actually previewing this time around. And there's a bigger gap between my top expectation series and everything else on the schedule probably than any preview since I've been doing season previews, which is now over 10 years. The obvious number one pick is Vinland Saga Season 2. Vinland Saga was chronologically, the last series of the 2010s that I put in my top 20 list for the decade. I believe it was number 12. It was a great show. We've been waiting about 3 years for it to come back, so it's exciting to have it come back for a second season. It is Mappa this time instead of Wit, which, Mappa is gobbling up big properties at an absolutely terrifying rate. They just signed on to One Punch Man Season 3, another one on their list for next year. So, nevertheless, it's still Vinland Saga. It's still that great manga that we love. It's still Yabuta Shuhei directing it. So really, I'm not expecting any serious downturn in quality. It may not look quite as good consistently as it did at Wit, but it'll still look really good. Vinland Saga, this upcoming material, a little bit divisive, I think, among manga fans. Some derisively call it Farmland Saga. Clearly, it's going to have a big tonal change from the first season, which I'm fine with. I have really complete faith in this series. I think anything that it does, it's probably going to do very, very well. And there are certainly manga fans that I trust pretty implicitly, who feel that the this upcoming quote unquote Farmland Saga is actually the best part of the series. Yukimura Makoto, who is the writer, the mangaka, I like I said, I have pretty much total faith in him. So there's, missing Escalade, who was in effect the de facto main character of the first season. I would say an incredible character. That absence will be felt. But we still have Thorfinn. We still have the main essential group of characters surrounding him. We still have Thorkel there, and King Canute is still there, and Leif Erikson will make an appearance, and a whole bunch of new characters we haven't met before. So my expectations of this show really couldn't be higher. And as I say, the gap between this and the number 2 show on my list for spring is probably wider than in any season I've ever done season previews. But Vinland Saga being on the schedule, that in and of itself, I guess one theory is if you get at least one great show, a season can't really be a bad season. And I think it's entirely within the realm of realistic possibility that winter 2023 is going to put that maxim to the test. But we'll see. 2 things are required for that to happen. Vinland Saga has to be great, and the rest of the season has to suck. Neither one of those things is a lock, but I would be leaning in the favor of positive at this point. But that is the only show I really put in my highest expectations category this time. And there have been season previews where I've had none in that category, so that's a step up, I suppose. The only thing we don't know really about this, the first season was 2 consecutive cours. I'm going to assume this one will probably run 2 cours, but it may not. Even if it does, they may be split, as MAPPA has been wont to do in the past. We'll see. I don't know whether the second core of the series will carry over into the pretty much already packed spring season. We'll see about that. For me, selfishly, it might almost be better if it was a split core, because most likely summer is not going to have the lineup of powerhouses that spring does, so I'll have more time to really savor it. But it has little competition for my attention this season, and that's Vinland Saga Season 2. Look forward to it. And with that, we jump right down into the mid-table category, which is one of the smallest I've ever had, only 3 shows. And they're all roughly on a par for me. I put Kubo-san wa Mob wo Yurusanai on top of that list just because I feel like of the 3 in that category, it's Kubo-san is the one that has the most potential to kind of surprise on the upside, if you will. This is a rom-com manga. English translation is Kubo-san Won't Let Me Be Invisible. And I have not read any of the manga, but it does seem to be pretty well regarded, all things being equal. The main storyline here is about a totally anonymous high school kid named Junta, who pretty much is okay living in the shadows, as far as I can tell, and being invisible. And the mischievous girl named Kubo-san, who sits next to him in homeroom and decides to, Takagi-san style perhaps, tease him on a daily basis and draw him out into the light, if as it were. It sounds like it could be a little bit on the nasty side, but from what I understand, it leans toward the sweet. So in that sense, I have fairly high expectations for the list. It's also by a studio, Pine Jam, who do a lot of really interesting work. They have tended to have somewhat chaotic production schedules, but they almost always do really interesting work, like Do It Yourself, which they're doing this season. The plot bores me, but the production itself is superlative. It's really a studio that's something of an artist collective, if you will. They've tried to do very artistic forward shows, and I'm hopeful that their adaptation of Kubo-san will follow that trend. The previews look fantastic. Again, I don't have personal experience with this material, but enough people whose opinion I trust and the general zeitgeist both are positive on this series that I'm hopeful at least that it's going to be a good rom-com. Then every season needs at least one good rom-com. We already know what it'll be for spring, but maybe this will be it for winter. Next on this list is Tsurune, second season of Tsurune. This one is called Tsunagari no Issha. And Tsurune is kind of an oddball for me in that it's one of only a few shows that I could probably count on one hand that I flat out dropped and then went back and picked them up later. I think I dropped it around episode 3 or 4 and picked it up around episode 7, the first season. And so it's a show that I'm obviously of two minds about in that sense. It is Kyoto Animation, of course, so you know it's going to look friggin' fantastic, and it does. It looks great. It's one of their most beautiful shows. It's an interesting mix, really, of a little bit shonen. Kyoto Animation has carved itself a little genre niche for these emotional struggle schoolboy shows, some with athletics tie-ins. There's a much more famous one, but I think Tsurune is much better than that one. It's not as pandery as that particular show. It has the emotional story is quite complicated, and it has a very nice mentor protege relationship between the Shinto priest who takes the protagonist who's suffered a lot of pain in his life under his wing, and they kind of help each other. Really good male mentor and protege relationships. The Aniki relationship, if you will. You don't see as many of them in anime as you used to, and I think this is a really good one, which is one of the reasons I was drawn back into the show after dropping it. A lot of the school-related stuff is frankly pretty mediocre, but on balance, there's a lot to like here. So there was also an OVA which I covered on LIA, and there was a movie too, but I have not actually seen the movie. So not huge expectations here, but I feel like I know what to expect, and I suspect it's gonna be pretty good. The last one is Hikari no O, which is another unknown for me, in that I don't have any knowledge of the source material, but it is based on some fantasy novels, not light novels, crucially, but actual novels. And probably the most interesting tie-in here is Oshii Mamoru, the very, very famous Oshii Mamoru, is acting on series composition here. So a big name director and writer like that taking on a series, adapting a series is kind of interesting. And Nishimura Junji actually is directing. Nishimura Junji is a very important and very significant director. Did most of his work at PA Works, including some very good shows over there. Hasn't done a lot in recent years that I've really liked, but certainly a talent. I mean, heck, the guy did True Tears, and True Tears is certainly an important series for me. So the storyline here is it's some sort of apocalyptic future, and anyone who gets near natural fire bursts into flame. But there's some kind of weird black beasts, flame spirits, which allow humans to access and harness fire. So I don't know. It sounds kind of vaguely generic Japanese fantasy premise there, but with the names involved in it and the fact that it is an actual fantasy novel series that's being adapted, it's certainly interesting. A total unknown for me, of course, but especially in a season like this, those can be very important. So if this one would step up and be really good, that would be a big help, because I don't see a lot of other candidates for that potentially. That's the mid-table, and then already, only 5 shows deep, we dig into the modestly interesting category, which is a way, way, way too fast to get down to that level. I don't have a ton in here that really looks big time to me. Monogatari is kind of an interesting Sunrise or Bandai Namco Pictures, as they call themselves now, series about Tsukumogami and exorcists. Kind of has an interesting look to it. Tomo-chan wa Onnanoko is about a tomboy trying to convince the childhood friend that she's in love with that she's actually a girl. Could be amusing. Um, Tokyo Revengers sequel. Now we got to talk about Tokyo Revengers because after Jujutsu Kaisen, Tokyo Revengers is the biggest new series hit, commercial blockbuster kaiju of the post JJK era, even bigger than Spy Family. I would say Spy Family has been the biggest since Tokyo Revengers, but Tokyo Revengers, on balance, when you factor in everything, is still bigger, I would suspect. I did finish the first season, which I can't say about Jujutsu Kaisen or Kimetsu, although I did go back to Kimetsu eventually. So I like Tokyo Revengers. There's a lot of really big flaws with the series for me. The writing is kind of sloppy. A lot of the characters are pretty uninteresting. A lot of the plot twists are seriously twisty. And I think it has a kind of a skewed view of how it looks at the whole central premise. But it does have something to it that kind of draws you in, I think. And another season of it is certainly going to be an event because it's one of the biggest commercial properties in anime and manga. So the manga has ended, although this season will not be long enough, I'm presuming, to finish it. It's going to be probably 2 cours again. We also have Ayakashi Triangle, which is a Shonen Jump Plus with the artist from To Love Ru is involved in it. And he's the mangaka. It's a series that isn't generally beloved as far as I can tell. It has a gender swap element, which kind of rarely interests me a whole lot. I don't know. It's okay. I'll give it a shot. I'm not expecting much, but I'm a skeptic with that one. Buddy Daddies is a new PA Work show. It looks like kind of a 3 men and a baby riff, but the only reason I'm more or less including this is because it's an original written by Kakihara Yuko, and another original series she wrote was Suki ga Kirei, which is one of my favorite series. It made my top 20 of the 2010s. It's a great, great original. So if she can do it once, maybe she can do it again. But again, some Oji-sans and a young girl comedy. Okay, that seems to be becoming a genre of itself, but we'll see. Not as big a PA Works fan as I used to be, but you never know when they'll surprise you. Revenger certainly gets a mention because Urobuchi Gen is the writer. I'm not personally a big believer that Urobuchi Gen is all that in a bag of chips, but he has done some good stuff, and his default state is way more interesting than the average anime writer. So you have to give him his due there. He's writing, and Fujimori Masaya, who's a very good veteran director who did recently Kemono Jihen, is directing it. So it's got a good group behind it. And it's an original. It's about the Satsuma clan and a bunch of assassinations, so there's a historical element. Most Urobuchi shows, he seems to lose interest before they get to the last episode, so hopefully that doesn't happen here. But because of the pedigree, I have to at least give it a shot. Next one would be Koori Zokusei Danshi to Cool no Douryou Joshi. No, it's not Cool Doji Janshi. This one is something to do with salaryman who's actually some sort of a mythological being who can automatically zap his coworkers into an Arctic wasteland whenever he concentrates too deeply. Just for the weirdness of it, I maybe will give that one a look. That one's based on a web manga. And finally, Ooyukiumi no Kaina, which is a polygon from Nihei Tsutomu, of course, who is the mangaka of Sidonia no Kishi. So Polygon knows his work well. I like Sidonia no Kishi, didn't love it, but not liked it enough to give this a look. It's Polygon, so it's going to be all CGI, and it's going to be above average CGI. It's kind of a standard what you're going to get from them. So they're really the only show on that whole list that I'll definitely blog is Vinland Saga 2, although I'm sure there's going to be at least a couple others that make the cut. I would be shocked if Kubo-san and Tsurune at least don't make it. Above and beyond that, though, it's a crapshoot. And I honestly, in looking for sleepers, I don't have any. The closest I can get is maybe Buddy Daddies, only because of Kakihara Yuko writing. But if she weren't the writer, I wouldn't even have previewed it. So I guess I'll call it a sleeper just so I don't leave the category completely empty. But that's about as close as I can get. And then OVA. The only OVA on my list this season is Ito Junji's Maniac. I'm not, again, I feel like on some level I find him to be overrated, but one of the reasons is probably because I only know him from anime, and the anime as a medium has not been super duper kind to Ito Junji as far as I can tell. So we'll give that one a look. And then theatrical, winter is rarely a big season for theatrical, but there are, so not surprising, it's not a huge laundry list here, but there are two films, I should say, that I'm interested in, and they're both big boys. One of them is Blue Giant, which Blue Giant is now a franchise of 3 different manga, sign-in manga about a young man who's in love with jazz and on a quest to become a great jazz saxophone player, the best in the world. Extremely good manga. I wish it had gotten a TV series, but it's sign-in. I'm not shocked it had to settle for a movie. But it is getting a movie, and it is directed by Tachikawa Yuzuru, who is one of the best directors in anime. It was because of the Blue Giant project that he reduced his role in Mob Psycho 3, although it hasn't seemed to suffer for that. So you get him, Tachikawa Yuzuru, directing Blue Giant. Yeah, expectations off the charts for that. I surely think that will be terrific. I don't have any idea how much of this massive storyline it intends to try to adapt. I'm assuming it'll probably stick to the first series, which is just called Blue Giant. And maybe not even all of that, but we'll see. The other one is Gridman Universe. Gridman Universe, of course, is the universe of SSSS.Gridman and SSSS.Dynazenon. The 2 Trigger series, by far, I like better than any other Trigger series so far. And I think they're both really, really terrific. Probably, and this matters to me more than it matters to some people, but for me, probably more authentically recreating the Gainax experience than anything, not just anything Trigger has done, and Lord knows they've consciously tried, but probably more than anybody has done since Gainax. Amemiya Akira is an old Gainax veteran, although he was a grommet when he was with them. He's really the visionary behind the Gridman Universe films. I personally like Dynazenon better than Gridman, but I love them both, and I don't like it because it's better. I liked it because Dynazenon is more of a character-driven series, and Gridman is more of a plot-driven series. How they will merge the 2 worlds will be interesting to see. Judging only by the preview, because we haven't gotten virtually anything written to indicate what this is going to be. It's very, very Gridman heavy, and there's not much Dynazenon in it, but I'm hoping that in the final analysis, the Dynazenon storyline and the Dynazenon characters do have a bit more of a role in this film. That's coming in March. Blue Giant is coming in February, and those are my 2 theatricals of the season. And that, somewhat more briefly than the last season preview, is the season preview for winter 2023. So I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for viewing. Of course, you can find the written preview on the website, lostinanime.com. Much more breadth there and more depth here as usual. Coming up later this month will be the year-end top 10 list, which will, of course, have a video attached to that as well. So look forward to that. I think you can probably guess when that will be coming. And the last thing I want to talk about is to just say a thank you to everyone who stepped up to support Lost in Anime when I came before you asking for it a couple of months ago. All the people who stepped up, I'm really, really deeply grateful. And if you're not aware, I'm doing commissions now. I've had several people sign up for those. So if there's something specific you'd like me to cover, something original you would like me to write about, anything like that, ongoing series, old series, Japan themed stuff, anything manga related, I have details on the website. You can find it on the front page. I'm always happy to do commission work. I think it's a great kind of twist on what I've been doing for the last 11 years. So reach out to me if that's something you're interested in. And again, my sincere thanks. My sincere thanks to you for watching, for listening. I hope you'll hit the like and subscribe buttons. And until we meet again in the season Anime of the Year video coming up, I want to say have a wonderful holiday season. And as ever, if there's any one message you take away from this video, it would be this: I hope, stay frosty.